sins. One of the Salaf said, whoever is such that his prayer does not prevent him from immoral acts and from sin, then it will not increase him, except in distance away from Allah. We ask Allah for afiyah, for safety and security. Amen. Because it is not the prayer which is required from us. Such a prayer that doesn't have any effect, meaning it doesn't affect us in that way, it doesn't take us further away from sin and immoral acts. The Shaykh said, this is not the prayer that's required from us. The prayer which is required from us is a prayer with the true meaning of the word. And he gives an example from the Salaf. He said, one of the Salaf, when he entered into the prayer, he would not perceive anything else occurring. And his mind would be away from everything except for Allah, the Mighty and Majestic. And then after having mentioned that, that's the case with the Salaf that we used to find with the Salaf. That's how their prayer would be. And he gives a specific example. He said, to the extent that Urwah ibn Zubayr, Rahimahullah, obviously Urwah, the son of the companion, Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, radiyallahu anhu. So he's this tabi'i. He said, Urwah ibn Zubayr, Rahimahullah. And he was from the jurists, the fuqaha of the tabi'een. Indeed, he's one of these, what they call the 7 famous fuqaha. Al-fuqaha as-sab'ah. He was one of them, Urwah. The Shaykh said he was one of the jurists of the tabi'een. One of his legs was afflicted with gangrene. And gangrene comes from a wound which then eats away until it eats away the whole of the body. I mean, progressively it spreads upon the body and eats it away. From a wound starts, it becomes infected, gets gangrene, and it spreads and spreads until it can, as the Shaykh said, eat the whole of the body. So therefore, the doctors decided to amputate his leg so that the gangrene would not spread to the rest of the body. And at that time, they did not have any possibility of anesthetizing. So therefore, he said, leave me until I enter into my prayer. I mean, leave me, said the doctors. He said, before you operate, before you amputate, let me start praying first. Then amputate. The Shaykh said, so when he entered into his prayer, they amputated his leg. So he did not feel it, because his heart was preoccupied with Allah. And the heart, when it becomes engrossed, then the person does not feel that which afflicts the body. He gave the example, he said, look at the porters, these carriers. And it doesn't mean like the porters we see here, just somebody who carries a small bag or something. That if you see over there in Saudi, for example, if you've ever seen them, there's some little Yemeni guy or something, with a whole huge refrigerator on his back or something, or in proper, what they call. I've seen them, yeah, you won't believe it unless you saw it, but they're proper carriers, yeah. Anyway, these hammalin, Shaykh said, if you see these porters who carries a great weights, carrying furniture and goods, and bringing them downstairs, when one of them becomes afflicted with a wound on his hand or on his leg, when he's carrying something, he doesn't feel the wound, because he's preoccupied. And then when he's finished the job, then he feels the wound. Then he feels it. Just a side point here, with regard to this narration that the Shaykh mentions from Urwah ibn Zubayr, and likewise, Imam al-Dhahabi, he mentions a few reports of this story in his great book, Siyar A'lam al-Nubala, Rahmah, volume 4, page 429 to 431. And just to mention some of the details, they mention that with regard to Urwah, rahimahullah, that the doctor said to him at the time, they said, that we can give you something, we can give you a drink. Obviously, as the Shaykh said, they had no way to anesthetize a person, they'd knock him out, so if he falls asleep and he doesn't feel, they didn't have any way to do that. But what they could have done, they said, we'll give you a drink, your mind will go. You won't know anything. I mean, whether it's alcohol or something in, but your mind will go. You won't notice. So he refused. He said, I never thought that anybody would take anything which took his mind away from his Lord. So he refused. He said, rather, do it to me while I'm in the prayer. So they said it's got to be amputated. If you don't amputate, it will spread. So, and they mentioned that he was on a journey when he took from Al-Madinah to Iraq. And when he reached this place, Wadi al-Qura, some distance from Medina, a little way from Medina, he had a wound on his leg. And it started getting worse and worse and worse. So the doctors said that we need to amputate. So he said, do it to me in the prayer. And they mentioned likewise, as the Shaykh said, they did as he said, and they mentioned that he didn't make any movement. Even on his face, he didn't make any movement when they amputated his leg. And they mentioned likewise, on the same journey, he lost his son, Muhammad. His son Muhammad, he fell, he was on the top of a stable, and he fell. And the horses trampled him, and his son died. Then they say when he came back on that journey, when he reached the same place, Wadi al-Qura, not far from Medina, that somebody asked him, how was this journey of yours? So on this journey of his, he lost his leg, and he lost one of his sons. So they said, how was your journey? So they say that he replied, لَقَدْ لَقِينَا مِنْ سَفَرِنَا هَذَا نَصَبًا. Surah Al-Kahf, the 18th surah, ayah 63. The same response which Musa alayhi salam said in the ayah, with the rough meaning that certainly we have encountered some fatigue in this journey of ours. He lost his leg and he lost his son. He said, we've encountered some fatigue on the journey of ours. Then he said, "O Allah, I had 7 sons, so you have taken 1, and you left me with 6. And I had 4 limbs, so you took 1, and you left me with 3. So even though you have tested me, you have granted me safety. And even though you have taken, you have certainly left." Meaning what you have taken, what you have left is more than what you have taken, with regard to limbs and with regard to my children. Rahimahullah.